Okay, so your situation is that you've now connected with a guy that you met on Tinder for the second time. And after a couple meetings, you just know that you felt meh about the connection and that you're not interested. So your question is, what do I do? Well, you are basically saying that you don't want to date him again, but you're saying, what do I do in order to not be messy, to spare his feelings? All right, so the very simplest and easiest thing that you should bring up is you could ghost him. You know, if you've had two meetings and things didn't go well, don't be messaging him first. All right, so maybe if you don't message him first, he maybe picks up on that, and maybe he picks up on maybe a bad second meeting, and that works itself out. Maybe. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe you just don't message first, but he ends up connecting and messaging you first. And then you're like, well, what do I do? Do I ignore him? Well, yeah, you could. And that you could just continue ghosting him in that form. The truth is, you've only met him a couple of times. You don't have that much invested in him. That is something that you could do and just feel like it's not a big deal. All right, because most people don't tell each other why they're not interested. They basically just drift apart. So if you were to kind of go down the drift apart path, you know, not necessarily just a hard ghost drifting apart, you might just like, man, you might just not be responding to his message like as soon as you were before, or as invested as you were before. Um, and you could just alter it so that the conversation just goes in such a polite route that it's not romantic, it's not a great conversation, and you people do that thinking that well this person will lose interest in me, and yeah, it works a lot of the time, especially if you've only met twice in person. People figure it out. All right, but let's say you get to the point where you're just like, shit, I'm trying to be polite about this. I'm trying to brush them off. My text messages aren't anything special. I'm barely messaging this guy back, but I can't get rid of him. Well, at any point in the future, you could go from, I mean, you could just transition from not messaging him after that second date to kind of continuing that ghosting to just be like, well, you might be, go into like, well, I'll kind of message with him, but try and hope gets the picture there. But you could still at any point still just call any point the point where you decide I have to say something. I have to end this. I'm gonna do it. And what I would say is if you get to that point where you feel that you need to say something, don't make it a lie. Find a truth. All right. Now the thing is find a truth that we can work with because the whole thing is we're trying to spare his feelings. So you got to take a second to take that into consideration. No one wants to hear the real truth of why they're not good enough for you, why they're not up to your standards. So you cannot share that with somebody. People don't want the whole truth, okay? Now, what you can do though is give them a truth for you. All right, so for example, if I were to ask you in person, like, why do you want to kind of yeah, terminate this connection with this guy? You might tell me something like, well, I met him twice in person. I just don't feel the connection is there and I don't want to waste his time. Well, I'll probably look you in the eye and say, like, that is your truth. And you could tell that to a guy. You could tell a guy, you know, if provoked to that point, you could tell him, like, hey, um, I just don't feel that connection between us, and I just don't want to waste your time. You know, you're a good guy, but I don't want to waste your time. A guy could take that, all right, because you're not saying something like, I don't find your jokes funny. Like I don't like your political humor, or you don't dress well. You know, like you're just politely and tactfully and respectfully giving somebody a way to walk away. All right. So remember, the big thing there is preparation. You never know when you're gonna find your moment, and in the moment, you don't want to have to think of some shit on the fly. So right now, think about what your truth is, just in case that moment comes, you know, in 15 seconds or in 15 days. All right, so find out what your truth is and think about that. And if you want to think about it and run it by me, it's just something that you need to have in your back pocket. And you could probably recycle that and reuse that in the future as well. But have it in your back pocket should you need to go there because that goes so much better. And you're trying to not be messy. And you just don't want to be like, well, I just said what the first thing was in my head. The first thing that is in your head, you're concerned, and I know you, is that you're going to be too blunt. So that's the preparation that is definitely up your alley. All right, and last, I would just say, try and just project that everything is cool with the situation. Don't make a big deal about it. You know, in person, on text, however, whatever form of communication. Just you're just trying to make it an experience that isn't dramatic. Okay, so the goal is not be dramatic. Just act like it's not a big deal and it's more believable to others and it's more likely to not be a big deal. All right, there you go. Let me know if you have any questions. And probably a good idea, run that default sort of one sentence truth by me. I'll take a look at that for you. All right. Thanks for watching. If you appreciated the content, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And if you believe that learning about better strategies for life and love is advantageous, I invite you to join Get Game Group. Membership is free, open to men and women, offers weekly game video lessons, and a weekly mailbag for member submissions. Click the link in the description to join.